The first thing I smelled when I came back to life was smoke, even though nothing was burning yet. It was only the memory of smoke, lodged so deeply in my throat that my body believed it before my eyes did. I was standing in the back courtyard of St. Valens College, beside the old brick incinerator the groundskeeper used for fallen branches, with a clear plastic folder clutched against my chest and rainwater dripping from the edge of the science block roof. Inside the folder was my formula sheet. 1 page, 2 sides, blue ink, folded once. Signed in the corner by Mr. Orlon, the external physics supervisor, after he checked it that morning and stamped it as an approved personal derivation sheet for the Hawthorne Physics Scholarship Final. The top line read, Candidate 44, Amara Vale, formula sheet verified 8:07 a.m. My handwriting filled every margin. Projectile relations, energy conservation, circular motion, wave speed, electric field equations, uncertainty notes, and, most importantly, a derivation for the coupled pulley problem that everyone else thought was impossible unless they had seen the leaked solution method. In my first life, Dr. Marcus Bell, head of physics, scholarship convener, and father of the boy who needed that derivation to disappear, walked into this courtyard at 8:39, held out a metal lighter, and whispered, "Burn it, Amara. If they find that sheet, they'll say you copied the leak." I believed him. I burned it. By lunchtime, the exam board asked why my answer matched the leaked method, but I had no dated proof of independent work. My result was suspended. His son, Adrian Bell, won the Hawthorne Scholarship with the same method, backed by a teacher-supervised practice derivation that appeared after mine was ash. Years later, I died in a boarding house fire after trying to rescue a box of student notebooks from a smoke-filled corridor because, apparently, one lifetime of burned proof was not enough to teach me fear. My last thought, coughing on the floor as pages curled black around me, was not poetic. It was a command. Save the formula sheet. Then I opened my eyes, and the page was whole again, cool under plastic, pressed to my heart while Dr. Bell's footsteps crossed the wet courtyard. A formula sheet is not supposed to feel alive. It is supposed to be a convenience, a summary, a rectangle of permitted memory. But mine had been built like a small house. Every line had a reason. Every symbol had a scar. I did not copy formulas from the textbook and call it revision. I derived them because memorizing symbols without knowing where they came from made me feel like I was borrowing someone else's brain. I wrote V equals U plus at, then under it the area argument from velocity time graphs. I wrote EC equals 1/2 mv caret 2, then beside it the work energy connection that made the half appear instead of magically arriving. I wrote F equals mv caret 2/r and drew a tiny circle with arrows because centripetal acceleration had betrayed me twice in practice papers. I wrote N equals C/v for refractive index and then boxed the warning. Index higher equals light slower equals bends toward normal entering. Do not reverse under stress. My sheet was messy, but it was mine. It did not simply tell me what to use. It told me why I trusted it. The Hawthorne Physics Scholarship allowed one approved formula sheet because the final was designed to test reasoning, not memory. Students had to submit the sheet before entry. External supervisors checked that it contained formulas, derivations, diagrams, and personal notes, but no worked answers to known questions, no copied marking schemes, and no prohibited data tables. Once approved, the sheet was stamped, photographed, logged, and returned to the candidate for use during the exam. After the final, it had to be submitted with the script. That last part mattered. The formula sheet was not only a tool. It was also a record of preparation. In an ordinary year, nobody cared. In the year of the leak, it became the only thing standing between independent work and accusation. The leak had appeared 2 nights before the exam. Not the whole paper, at least not publicly. A blurry photo of a pulley and ramp problem had moved through private study chats, then screenshots of screenshots, then rumors. The school issued an email saying the exam paper remained secure, the leaked image was unverified, and students should not engage with unauthorized material. That was administrative theater. Everyone knew enough to panic. The photo showed a system with 2 masses, a ramp, friction, and a pulley arrangement that did not simplify into the standard textbook form. Most students thought the problem was fake. I thought the structure looked familiar because I had been working on a similar system for weeks after finding an old university extension question in the library. My formula sheet included the general derivation: choose directions, write Newton's second law for each mass, include friction opposite motion, eliminate tension, solve for acceleration, check limiting cases. It was not the leaked answer. It was a method broad enough to solve the leaked problem. That was why Dr. Bell needed it gone. My name was Amara Vale, and physics was the first subject that made poverty feel briefly irrelevant. Not because physics paid bills. It did not. Not then. But because gravity did not care whether my blazer was secondhand, and light refracted the same way through expensive glass and the scratched window above our kitchen sink. My mother worked in a laundry attached to a private hospital where she folded sheets for people who never knew her name. My father had been an electrician until a ladder fall damaged his hip and turned every staircase into a negotiation. My younger sister, Lenny, was 13 and believed every electrical appliance in our house could be repaired if I stared at it long enough with a screwdriver nearby. We lived in a flat above a bakery that made the walls warm in winter and the air smell like yeast. At night, I studied at the kitchen table while my mother ironed uniforms for cash, and my father explained circuits from memory, drawing battery symbols on old envelopes. Do not trust a formula you cannot rebuild, he told me. If you can rebuild it, no one can take it from you. In my first life, someone took the page anyway. Dr. Marcus Bell was the kind of teacher who made achievement look calm and inevitable, especially when it belonged to his son. He had a narrow face, silver black hair, and hands so steady students joked he could draw a perfect circuit without a ruler. He wore dark suits under his lab coat and carried a leather clipboard with a brass clip. His voice was gentle in the way locked doors are gentle, not loud, simply final. Parents admired him because he ran the physics Olympiad team, wrote reference letters that opened university interviews, and spoke about nurturing scientific excellence regardless of background. Students feared him because he could look at your working and make you feel not wrong, but unworthy of the question. His son, Adrian Bell, was St. Valens' perfect physics candidate, quiet, pale, precise, always holding a sharpened pencil, always saying interesting before giving an answer. Adrian was intelligent. That mattered. He could do elegant algebra and see patterns quickly. But he often memorized final forms without understanding what broke when assumptions changed. He loved clean derivations handed to him. He did not love building them under pressure. In my first life, Dr. Bell approached me in the courtyard while students waited for the exam hall to open. I had gone outside because the corridor was too crowded, and I wanted to review the sheet one last time before surrendering my nerves to the paper. Rain tapped the roof gutter. The old brick incinerator stood in the corner, damp and unused. Dr. Bell appeared with his clipboard under one arm and the metal lighter in his hand. "Amara," he said. "A serious concern." My stomach dropped instantly because no teacher says serious concern before an exam unless they plan to make the concern yours. "Yes, sir?" He nodded toward the plastic folder. "Your formula sheet includes a derivation suspiciously similar to material circulating online." "It's my derivation." "I know you believe that." "It's signed." Mr. Orlon checked it. The external supervisor checked format, not provenance. Provenance. He used that word like a blade with velvet on the handle. If the board finds the sheet after the exam, they may infer you used leak material. But I wrote it before the leak. "Can you prove that?" I opened my mouth. The truth was yes, partly. I had drafts at home. Notebook pages. A photo I sent my father. But not in my hand. Not there. Dr. Bell lowered his voice. "Burn it." I stared at him. "Burn my approved sheet? Better to sit without it than be accused of dishonesty." "But the rules say we submit it after." "If it is lost before entry due to anxiety, that is unfortunate. If it is found after the exam, it is evidence against you." He stepped closer. "You are a bursary student, Amara. You cannot afford an academic misconduct review. Your mother's fee extension, your sister's science camp application, your father's disability support letter for transport assistance, these are all reviewed by people who value integrity." Integrity. That word again. Always placed in front of poor students like a toll gate. Adrian has already reported that he saw similar material in unauthorized chats, Dr. Bell continued. The board will be alert. My mind raced. Adrian had seen the leak? Had he reported it? Was my sheet dangerous? Would they think I cheated because I had been too thorough? Dr. Bell opened the lighter. The small flame appeared under the gray morning. Burn it, Amara. I am trying to protect you. That was the cruelest part. He made destruction sound like shelter. In my first life, I took the sheet from the folder. My hands shook so badly the plastic sleeve slipped to the wet ground. I held the page over the incinerator while Dr. Bell shielded the lighter from the rain. Fire caught the corner slowly, then suddenly, blue ink turned brown, curled, vanished. The derivation blackened first. The notes followed. My name disappeared last. Smoke rose in a thin line, carrying weeks of work into the damp air. Dr. Bell watched until only ash remained, then closed the lighter. Good, he said softly. Now focus on what you know. I sat the exam without the sheet. I still solved the pulley problem because I knew the derivation or most of it. But panic cost me time, and missing the sheet meant missing my own safety checks. I forgot to test the frictionless limit. I wrote the acceleration expression correctly, but did not justify the sign convention clearly. Adrian wrote a polished solution using the same method, with a neat note that his father had supervised a similar derivation during practice the week before the leak. After the exam, because my solution resembled the leaked method and my approved formula sheet was lost, my result was held. Dr. Bell submitted a statement saying he had warned me about potential contamination, but did not know what happened to my sheet. Mr. Orlon remembered signing it, but had only the approval log, not a copy of the content, because the school scanner had malfunctioned. Adrian won the Hawthorne Scholarship by 5 marks after my score was excluded pending review. At the assembly, Dr. Bell applauded his son with steady hands. I sat beside my mother and tasted smoke. The first life after that smelled like smoke for years. My bursary renewal became difficult because integrity questions remained unresolved. My mother took an extra shift pressing hospital linens until her wrists swelled. My father stopped asking about physics because he thought the subject had hurt me, though really it had been the people guarding the door. Lenny did not get into science camp. I transferred to a cheaper school and I kept studying physics alone, but every derivation felt fragile without a record. I became a tutor, then a lab demonstrator, then a teacher in community programs where students came in believing formulas were magic spells written by people smarter than them. I taught them to rebuild every equation. I also taught them to date their working, photograph drafts, keep notebooks, email themselves copies, and never let a teacher turn protecting you into destroying proof. They thought I was intense. I was. Intensity is what remains after ash. I died in a boarding house fire when I was 30. I lived there temporarily while teaching evening physics classes and saving for a better place. The building had old wiring, too many extension cords, and a landlord who wrote "scheduled for inspection" in response to every warning. One of my students lived 2 rooms down with her grandmother and kept her notebooks in a shoebox under the bed. When the alarm screamed at 2:13 a.m., smoke already filled the hallway. I got out once. Then I heard her crying that her grandmother's medication list and school notebooks were still inside. I went back because I had never learned to leave paper to burn when it held someone's future. The corridor shifted between orange and black. Heat pressed the walls inward. I found the shoebox, shoved it toward her, and turned, but a ceiling panel dropped. Smoke entered my lungs like wet wool. Pages scattered around me, curling at the edges. One notebook opened beside my hand to a page of equations. The ink blurred. My last thought was not regret for going back. It was fury at fire itself. Save the sheet. Then the courtyard returned, and the plastic folder was still against my chest. This time, I did not wait for Dr. Bell to define the danger. At 8:31, before he reached me, I took 3 photos: front of the formula sheet, back of the formula sheet, and the approval stamp beside my candidate card. I emailed them to myself, my mother, my father, Lenny, and the external exam address printed on the Hawthorne guidelines. Subject: Candidate 44 approved formula sheet, pre-exam record. I wrote one line. Approved and in my possession at 8:31 a.m. Then I walked back inside and handed the sheet to Mr. Orlon, the external supervisor. Can you confirm the content's been saved? I asked. He frowned, checked the tablet, and his face tightened. The school scanner didn't upload the image. Of course it had not. Could you scan it now with the external tablet? He studied me for 1 second. Honest adults often recognize fear before evidence explains it. Yes. He scanned both sides, saved the file, and wrote a note on the log. Candidate 44 requested external content scan at 8:34. Sheet approved and recorded. He returned it to me. Keep this with you until entry. Submit it after the exam. I will, I said. That was the first promise I made to my second life. Dr. Bell found me in the courtyard at 8:39. Same rain. Same incinerator. Same lighter in his hand. He looked at the folder, then at me. Amara, he said. A serious concern. About my formula sheet? His eyes flickered. He had expected to introduce the fear, not meet it waiting. Yes. It has been externally scanned. His face did not fall yet. Men like him do not fall while alternatives remain. Scanned. Both sides. Mr. Orlon logged it. That was unnecessary. The guidelines say approved sheets are part of the exam record. His smile thinned. Your sheet includes a derivation similar to leaked material. It includes a general method I wrote before the leak. Can you prove that? I have dated notebook photos and the external scan. The board may still see risk. Then the board can review the record. He opened the lighter anyway. The flames snapped alive, absurdly bright in the gray air. Burn it, Amara. My throat tightened so hard for 1 second I could not breathe. The body remembers smoke before the mind finishes arguing. No. His hand remained steady around the lighter. You are making a dangerous choice. Burning approved exam material would be more dangerous. I am trying to protect you. By destroying evidence? The flame moved in the rain. By preventing a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding of what? Of why a bursary candidate has a derivation matching a leaked problem. There it was. Bursary candidate. Not student. Not physicist. Not candidate 44. A category he thought could burn more easily. Because I derived it, I said. Then you should have no fear. I don't. That's why I'm keeping it. His eyes hardened. Your mother's fee extension is due. My formula sheet is not a fee document. Your sister's science camp is not kindling. The sentence came out sharper than I expected. It struck both of us silent. Rain tapped the roof. The lighter flame trembled. I raised my voice enough to carry through the open science block door. Mr. Orlon? Dr. Bell's hand tightened. Mr. Orlon appeared a moment later, tablet under one arm. Candidate 44? Dr. Bell is telling me to burn my approved formula sheet because it may resemble leaked material. Silence. The lighter stayed open. The flames suddenly looked ridiculous, like a magic trick performed in a courtroom. Mr. Orlon's gaze moved from the lighter to the plastic folder to Dr. Bell's face. Extinguish that, he said. Not requested. Ordered. Dr. Bell closed the lighter slowly. I was advising the candidate about contamination risk. Approved materials are not destroyed by staff instruction. The leak complicates provenance. That is why the sheet is scanned and logged. You scanned it? At the candidate's request. For the first time, Dr. Bell's hands changed. Not shaking. Not yet. But stillness left them. His fingers tightened, loosened, tightened again around the lighter. Mr. Orlon held out his hand. Candidate 44, please give me the formula sheet. My heart lurched. He saw it. For sealing, he added. You will receive it at your desk, and it will be collected with your script. I handed it over. He placed it in a transparent sleeve, sealed the top with a yellow evidence strip, wrote my candidate number across it, and signed half on the strip, half on the plastic. This sheet is now held under external exam control, he said. It will not be destroyed. Dr. Bell looked at the sealed sleeve as if the page had grown teeth. If there is a misconduct issue, then the board will review the record, Mr. Orlon said. Not Ash. The exam began at 9. My formula sheet lay on the upper right corner of my desk in its sleeve, unsealed for use only after Mr. Orlon announced permission. It had never looked more precious or more ordinary. Around me, students opened papers. Pages turned. Pencils scratched. I breathed through the last of the smoke memory and began. Paper 1, Mechanics. Momentum, energy, circular motion, projectile path with air resistance neglected but uncertainty in launch angle included. I used my sheet rarely at first, mostly for checks because its presence calmed me more than its content helped. Then came question 12. The coupled pulley problem. Two masses, an inclined plane, friction coefficient, a hanging mass, a pulley with negligible mass, a question asking for acceleration and tension, then a conceptual extension where the friction coefficient changed after motion began. It was the leaked structure, but with different numbers and one added assumption. Students who memorized the leaked answer would fail the extension. Students who understood the derivation could adapt. I wrote the method from first principles. Define positive direction. Draw free body diagrams. For the block on the plane, component of weight down slope, normal force, friction opposite motion, tension up slope. For the hanging mass, weight down, tension up. Sum equations. Eliminate tension. Solve acceleration. Then check signs. I used my formula sheet not to copy but to study the sequence. In the margin of the sheet, beside the old derivation, I had written, if acceleration sign flips, assumed motion wrong, state and correct. That note saved me when the extension changed friction enough that the direction condition became delicate. I caught it. I wrote it. I boxed the reasoning. Somewhere in the room, Adrian Bell was writing too smoothly. I could feel it without looking. Smoothness has a sound in exam halls. No pauses, no crossed-out assumptions, no wrestling. Physics should wrestle back. At pens down, Mr. Orlon collected scripts and formula sheets together. He came to my desk personally. Candidate 44. Formula sheet returned with script. He checked the sleeve, the stamp, the scan ID, and the page count. 2 sides. Yes. No damage. No, he placed it into the script envelope. The sheet entered the record hole. Not ash. Not memory. Not my word against a man with a lighter. Hole. The review began before results because the leak investigation had already made the Hawthorne board nervous. The external panel compared candidate solutions to the leaked image, approved formula sheets, draft materials, and teacher-supervised practice records. My formula sheet showed the general derivation scanned before the exam. My notebook photos, sent from my phone days earlier to my father with a message, I finally fixed the tension sign, confirmed the work existed before the leak. The handwriting matched. The method adapted correctly to the change condition. Adrian's solution, meanwhile, matched the leaked method too closely in the first part and failed the extension in a way that suggested memorized structure, without independent derivation. Worse for Dr. Bell, the teacher-supervised practice derivation he submitted for Adrian was created the morning after the leak, not before. Metadata is a quiet animal until it bites. I learned most of this in the formal interview 3 days later. Present were Mr. Orlon, Principal Voss, Professor Hart from the University Physics Department, the school legal officer, my mother, and me. Dr. Bell was not present. Good. Schools that put accused staff in the room with students call it balance only when they have chosen a side. Professor Hart placed a printed copy of my formula sheet on the table. Seeing it copied, not burned, almost made me cry. Candidate 44, she said, walk us through the origin of this derivation. I did. Old university extension question. Library notebook. My father's envelope diagrams. Sign error corrected 2 days before leak. Photos sent to family. Sheet drafted, revised, approved. She asked why I requested an external scan. I looked at my mother, then back. Because Dr. Bell had warned students that the leak could create suspicion, and I wanted proof that my sheet was approved before the exam. That was true enough without explaining Rebirth. Did Dr. Bell instruct you to destroy the sheet? My mother's hand tightened around mine. Yes. He told me to burn it. Professor Hart's expression did not change, but the legal officer looked up sharply. He had a lighter? Yes. Mr. Orlon said, I witnessed the lighter open and instructed him to extinguish it. Beautiful sentence. Horrible sentence. Necessary sentence. Dr. Bell's face fell in a different room, but I heard about it from the person who saw. Lenny, who had no business near the administration corridor but had learned from our mother that useful information often lives near doors, saw him leave the review office. She told me later he looked like someone unplugged him. But the visible moment everyone remembered came at the announcement assembly. The Hawthorne board decided to announce findings before awards to stop rumors from doing the work badly. Students packed the physics theater. Parents filled the back. Dr. Bell sat at the side with Adrian, not on stage. His hands rested on his knees, too still. Mr. Orlon stood at the lectern. Following review of the leaked material concern, the board has verified that Candidate 44's formula sheet was independently prepared, approved, scanned, used, and submitted according to exam rules. My mother exhaled like she had been holding her breath since my first life. The board has also determined that Dr. Marcus Bell improperly instructed Candidate 44 to destroy approved exam material and failed to disclose a conflict in relation to Candidate Adrian Bell's preparation record. The room shifted toward Dr. Bell. He did not move. Mr. Orlon continued. Candidate Adrian Bell has been removed from prize consideration due to contamination of preparation materials. Dr. Bell has been removed from all scholarship duties pending disciplinary review. That was when his hands froze. Not shook. Froze. He had been rubbing one thumb over the side of his index finger, a small repetitive motion, perhaps to hold himself together. At the words disciplinary review, the movement stopped completely. His fingers locked in place on his knees, pale at the knuckles, as if his body had finally understood that touching, moving, burning, smoothing, arranging, everything his hands had always done to control outcomes, would not help him now. His face remained nearly expressionless, but his hands betrayed the collapse. Adrian looked at them, then at the floor, then at me. The Hawthorne Physics Scholarship, Mr. Orlon said, is awarded to Candidate 44, Amara Vale. Applause rose slowly at first, then hard. My mother cried without trying to hide it. My father, who had come despite his hip pain, pressed both hands over his mouth. Lenny shouted, "She saved the sheet," which was not exactly dignified but was accurate. I walked to the stage feeling the strange lightness of a person whose proof had not turned to smoke. Professor Hart handed me the certificate, the placement letter, and, beneath them, my formula sheet in its sleeve. "Keep deriving," she said quietly. I held the page against my chest the way I had in the courtyard, but this time it did not feel like something I had to protect alone. The disciplinary report was careful, formal, and still devastating. Dr. Bell had instructed a candidate to destroy approved exam material, referenced family vulnerabilities in a coercive context, failed to disclose his son's access to contaminated preparation materials, and submitted a misleading practice record after the leak. The school could not prove he had leaked the problem. That line irritated me for years. But it proved enough. Adrian was barred from the scholarship and required to resit a different assessment if he wanted physics commendation credit. Dr. Bell resigned before the board completed its wider review. Officially, he left to restore trust and pursue independent STEM education consulting. Of course, men who try to burn paper often later sell fire safety. St. Valens changed the Hawthorne rules. Approved formula sheets had to be externally scanned before entry. Staff with relatives in the exam could not review candidate materials. Any leak investigation had to preserve, not destroy, student preparation records, and no staff member could privately advise a candidate to discard, alter, or damage approved exam materials. Boring reforms. Beautiful reforms. Every future formula sheet became harder to burn. Adrian found me in the library near the end of term. He stood beside the physics shelves holding a notebook with a black elastic band around it. He looked less polished without the scholarship orbit around him. "I didn't know he told you to burn it," he said.
No hello.
These boys never began with hello after their fathers were exposed. "Did you know your practice record was made after the leak?" I asked. His face tightened. "I knew we practiced after." "Did you know he dated it like it was before?" Silence. "No," he said finally. Then, quieter. I didn't ask. Why not? He looked down at the notebook. Because I wanted the method.
Honest. Ugly.
Useful. I thought if I understood it by exam day, it didn't matter where it started. It matters. I know now. He opened the notebook and showed me a page of crossed-out pulley equations.
Messy.
Wrong sign corrected twice. I'm redoing it from first principles. I glanced at the page. Your friction direction flips in the second case.
He looked.
Winced. Right. Check limiting cases. That's what your sheet said. Yes. He closed the notebook.
I'm sorry.
Not enough. But I am. I did not forgive him out loud. But I said, do not let your father hand you methods without roots. He nodded. I won't. We did not become friends. But months later, I saw Adrian explain a derivation to a Year 10 student slowly from the diagram, not the answer. Growth is sometimes just learning to stop accepting fire as a shortcut. The scholarship changed our house before it changed my heart. Tuition cleared. My mother dropped one hospital laundry shift and slept past 6 on a Sunday for the first time in years. My father bought a proper stool for the kitchen, so he could help me with circuit diagrams without standing on his bad hip. Lenny got into science camp through a separate foundation and came home obsessed with optics, which meant every glass of water became a refraction demonstration whether anyone wanted it or not. I entered the university physics placement and discovered laboratories where notebooks were treated like extensions of thought, not messy threats to reputation. The first time a researcher showed me 3 pages of failed derivation and said, "This is the useful bit," I had to look away. Years later, I became a physics teacher and assessment designer. Not because I wanted to stay near exams forever, though apparently fate has a sense of humor, but because I wanted students to understand formulas as built things. I made them derive before memorizing, check units before substituting, estimate before calculating, and keep dated working because provenance is not just for historians. In my classroom, formula sheets were not cheat sheets. They were maps. Students had to explain one formula's origin each week. They complained. Then they learned. On the wall above my desk, I kept my old hawthorn sheet framed, edges slightly wrinkled, blue ink faded but legible. Under it was a small plaque Lenny made. Do not burn your thinking.
Dramatic? Yes.
Accurate? Also yes. The boarding house fire from my first life did not kill me in the second. I know because when I saw the building listed for student accommodation years later, I checked the fire safety records before recommending it to anyone. Old wiring. Bad corridor ventilation. Delayed inspection. I filed a complaint with enough evidence that the council had to inspect. The landlord called me unreasonable. The building was rewired within 3 months. On the night I once died, I was teaching an evening physics class in a community center with working exits and clear corridors. A student stayed after to ask whether she should keep her messy notebook pages or rewrite only the clean solutions. I said, keep both. Then I went home and cried in the shower because prevention feels anticlimactic until you remember the version where nobody prevented it. I saw Dr. Bell once years later at a private tutoring conference. Of course, he had reappeared. Men like him rarely vanish. They rename themselves after the smoke clears. He was running a session on high-performance exam integrity. I did not attend because I had already survived enough irony, but he approached me near the tea urn. Older, thinner, still with those precise hands. Amara Vale, he said. Or Ms. Vale now, I suppose. Amara is fine. You have done meaningful work in assessment. I try to preserve student thinking. His hands folded together. Too controlled. Too still. You always did have a talent for drama. You brought the lighter.
His face tightened.
I was attempting to protect you from an allegation by destroying the record that disproved it. The context was difficult. Physics is difficult. Burning paper is simple. His hands froze again. Not as visibly as that day in the theater, but enough that I saw memory lock the joints. Adrian suffered after that year, he said. Adrian learned to derive. You are unforgiving. No, I said. I am archived. He looked away first. Sometimes that is the whole experiment. My mother eventually opened a small stationery, printing, and tutoring supply shop beside the bakery below our old flat. She called it formula sheet because our family had long since abandoned subtlety as a business model. The shop sold notebooks, folders, calculators, graph paper, binders, exam sleeves, fireproof document pouches, and laminated revision planners Lenny designed with unnecessarily aggressive headings. My father ran a tiny repair counter for lamps, plugs, and calculators, telling every student, if you wrote it, date it. If you derived it, keep it. On the wall above the printer, my mother painted, save the page that proves how you think. Students came in embarrassed by messy notes, and she would say, messy is fine. Ash is hard to mark. That became the shop's unofficial motto. Now, when I teach, I tell students that a formula is not a spell, and a formula sheet is not a confession. It is a record of relationship. You and the equation have met before. You know where it comes from. You know when it applies. You know what assumptions hold it up. You know how it breaks. Anyone can copy a final line. Fewer people can rebuild it under pressure. And if someone powerful tells you that your preparation looks suspicious because it resembles the right method, ask whether they are afraid of cheating or afraid that your work existed before their favorite needed it. The simple version is true. I was reborn. I saved my formula sheet. He told me to burn it. His hands froze. But the simple version cannot hold the smell of damp smoke in the courtyard, the blue ink curling black in my first life, Mr. Orlon sealing the page in a transparent sleeve, the pulley derivation surviving the leak review, Adrian realizing he had accepted a method without roots, my mother sleeping on a Sunday because tuition no longer owned her body, or Dr. Bell's fingers locking on his knees when the board said the word disciplinary. It cannot hold the girl who once mistook destruction for protection because a man with a lighter used the word integrity. It cannot hold the woman who learned that proof must sometimes be saved from the people who claim to guard it. If someone ever tells you to burn, delete, tear up, discard, hide, or surrender the page that proves your thinking because its existence makes the wrong person nervous, do not reach for the flame. Reach for the scanner. Send the copy. Log the time. Put the original in a sleeve. Let the record multiply before the threat becomes private. And if his hands freeze when the page survives long enough to speak, do not call it revenge. Call it conservation of evidence. Save your formula sheet. Keep the derivation whole. Let the smoke belong to someone else.